You are Locked On Mets Postcast. Part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The New York Mets offense has gone missing, and they are going to need to find it in a hurry if they want to be a playoff team in 2024. Welcome in to this Locked On Mets postcast. I'm your host, Chris Schubert, as the New York Mets fall in disappointing fashion, 6-0 to the Milwaukee Brewers in a very uncompetitive effort, a lack of urgency effort, a team that did not appear to be a team that was competing for a playoff spot with the way that they have played over the last couple of days, but more importantly, for the sake of this episode tonight. This episode of the Locked On Mets postcast, and boy, do we have a lot to get into tonight, brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This was ugly. This was disappointing. This team has completely shifted from a team that has been the team with the best record in baseball over the last 100 games to a team that looks like they're going to need everybody else to do the work for them if they are going to be a team playing in October, meaningful baseball in the playoffs, because this effort tonight was just abysmal, disgusting, ugly. It was uncompetitive. The approach by the offense was ugly. It was abysmal. It was non-competitive. It was words I can't say on this Locked On Mets postcast. Just a team that did not have their A game, didn't have their B game, didn't have their C game tonight. And we knew the Milwaukee Brewers going into this game were going to use all of their A relievers in this game, give them a day off tomorrow. So you knew you had to score the runs early in this one, and the Mets weren't able to do anything in this game. In fact, they left their two opportunities that they had in the game, two golden opportunities, two A-plus opportunities. They just let those opportunities die very quickly out there on the field. Look, Francisco Lindor, Mark Vientos, Brandon Nimmo, and Pete Alonso combined to go 0 for 15. You are not going to win any baseball game where Francisco Lindor, Mark Vientos, Brandon Nimmo, and Pete Alonso go a combined 0 for 15. You're not going to win baseball games when your 1, 3, 4, and 5 hitters don't get a hit. You are not going to win a lot of baseball games when your 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 hitters combine for one hit. And the one hit came from Jose Iglesias in the first inning to extend his career high hitting streak to 19 games. That's it. That is the only thing the top of the lineup provided. The one hit from Jose Iglesias and the one walk. That was all the 1 through 5 hitters were able to provide. And when you looked at a lineup coming into tonight that didn't have Francisco Alvarez because of the back injury, thought he would be available as a pinch hitter. He did come into the game and then catch. That was a good sign. But you knew you were going to have Luis Torrens. You got Harrison Bader in the lineup. You're moving Lindor back to the DH spot. So that means Luis Acuna slides in at shortstop. It means you're putting him back in the 9 hole. And while he has been a spark plug, he is still a rookie. Marte has not had a lot of great at-bats, although had a double tonight. You are basically saying after 1 through 5 in the lineup, we don't got a lot here. We don't have our best. And I know Tyrone Taylor's been hitting, good as of late and comes in as a pinch hitter, but you have Harrison Bader in there, Luis Torrens, Luis Angel Acuna. They don't provide anything. You get 2 hit. Starlin Marte provides 1 double in this game, and Jose Iglesias starts off the game with a single. That's it. That's all this team was able to muster. And the approach by this offense to just take pitches and to just stare at first pitch strikes right down the middle. I can get it in the early stages. You're trying to see Milwaukee's throwing an opener out there. You know they're going to get into their bullpen. You want to see if the guys that they're bringing in have their A stuff, if they're on their game. But you got to be able to make an adjustment. It's September 28th. The Mets have to win games if they are going to make the playoffs. Their path of making the playoffs without winning a game requires a lot of help. Help that, as we are doing this podcast, they did not get tonight. They did not get the help they needed to down in Atlanta. Former Met Travis d'Arnaud with a walk-off home run. The Padres and Diamondbacks still in action as we speak. They're not getting the help they need, so they have to go out and take it. They have to go out and win baseball games. And with the effort that they have given the last 2 nights, and really tonight in particular, because even in the last 2 games that they lost, which kind of started this spiral, there was at least a little bit of fight. There was nothing tonight. They did not have it. They did not have the fight required of a team that is fighting for their playoff lives. a team that is fighting to get into the playoffs, that is fighting to end 2024 on a good note for all of the good things that they have provided. And their offensive approach just stunk. Just staring at hittable pitches. Starling Marte trying to be pull happy when you've got a runner at second base early in the game to potentially put yourself up 1-0, give Jose Quintana a little bit of help. And by the way, let's just very quickly, because if you see on the graphic, we have a lot of discussion about the lineup and the offense, and we're going to weave in and out of these topics on tonight's postcast. It's going to be a little different format to the one that we normally do. Jose Quintana pitched well enough for this team to win a baseball game tonight. And when we're talking about games in September that have playoff type implications, that are de facto playoff games, they even said it on the broadcast. Wayne Randazzo and John Smoltz on the Fox broadcast talked about this. It's a regular season game in name only just because of where it's taking place. It has a playoff feel everywhere. The urgency for or at least the supposed urgency for the New York Mets. The urgency for the other teams that are watching that game. What the Brewers are doing in this game to try to set up their team for the postseason. This game wasn't just any old, ordinary, regular season game in the middle of May or June. This game had a different feel to it, had a different importance to it. Mets didn't show up. Jose Quintana pitched well enough that if this was a playoff game, that type of outing is good enough for this Mets team to be able to win, to be able to have a chance to win. They didn't have a chance tonight. They did not have a chance with the offensive effort that they put out there. Was it Jose Quintana at his best? Absolutely not. Was it Jose Quintana the way we've seen him in his previous 5 starts where he had a sub .5 ERA? No. But it was good enough to give the Mets a chance to win. Then Phil Maton comes in. He keeps it at 2-0. And I joked the last time I did a postcast, we did the opener of that Braves series. And I said I didn't have a lot of notes. We have a little more notes tonight. Normally, each game gets a page. You will see Mets Braves up here. We got a little more for tonight's game, but not a lot. And the big things that we have were Quintana doing enough, and then what Maton did in the 6th to keep this a 2-0 game. This was a 2-0 game until the bottom of the 8th. The pitching did enough, gave a playoff-type effort until Reed Garrett blew up in the 8th inning. But this pitching staff did enough through 7 innings to give this team a chance. They didn't do anything with it. The offense laid a goose egg. And again, if you're just joining us, the 1, 3, 4, and 5 hitters combined to go 0 for 15 tonight for the New York Mets. 0 for 15. It's just never going to happen. You're never going to win any game if that's the output that you get from your star players. And it isn't just a random 1 through 5. It's Francisco Lindor, Mark Vientos, Brandon Nimmo, and Pete Alonso. The 4 players that this team, this offense needs to rely on if they're going to win games. Their MVP candidate. Their rising star at third base. One of their cornerstone outfielders. One of their homegrown talents. And Pete Alonso in a contract year who's already hit 30-plus home runs. Has to come up in a big moment. For those of you watching, for those of you listening in the podcast feed, did Pete Alonso have a memorable at bat tonight? He drove one to the wall that he got completely underneath. Just his pure strength got it out that far. Did Brandon Nimmo have an at bat that you can remember? Yeah, he went 0 for 4, but he had a good quality at bat. Did Vientos? Did Lindor? No. There wasn't a grade A at bat even in that 0 for 15. There wasn't anything you can hang your hat on for tonight. There is nothing that this team can take away from this game that they can try to build on for tomorrow. We build on that tomorrow. This Mets team doesn't even need to go to Atlanta for the doubleheader. They will not be one of the 3 teams participating as National League wildcard teams in 2024. There was a lot to unpack. The lineup construction and the missed opportunities were definitely some of the things we still have to get to here on the show, and that'll happen here in just a second. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5 APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply for product-specific disclosures. Visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. The lineup construction. I know there was a lot of conversation about it, and the fact that you don't have Francisco Alvarez, at least to start. You do get him in as a pinch hitter. You put Harrison Bader in there. Acuna is back in at shortstop. And look, after 1 through 5, and let's put aside the 0 for 15 that the 4 players that we've been talking about had in tonight's game. When the bottom half of your lineup is Marte, Torrens, Bader, and Acuna, you got to do your damage early because these are flawed players. Luis Torrens is a backup catcher who, at this stage of the season, should not be playing in key spots. He should only be coming in as a defensive replacement late if the Mets have a big lead or if Alvarez is hurt, which is the case was tonight. Alvarez should be in there every day. He wasn't because of the back, and that's the hand the Mets were dealt. Harrison Bader, part of this rotation that Carlos Mendoza has been attempting to do with his outfielders. I get it. You want to have Bader in there for the defense. Again, I understand it, but he comes with his limitations offensively. Luis Angel Acuna has been a spark plug, has been a good player for this team, but again, is a rookie playing in only his 11th game of the season. And so when you have that as the bottom part of your lineup, the top part has to do a whole lot. And guess what? There are 2 scenarios. There are 2 examples from this game where the bottom part of this lineup and the fact that it is flawed directly came back to hurt the New York Mets. In the second inning, Pete Alonso gets on after an errant throw, goes into the dugout, goes into the stands. He gets to go to second base. Runner on second, nobody out. The next batter's up, Marte, Torrens, Bader, and Acuna. Those are the guys in the lineup after Alonso. Runner at second, nobody out. The Mets don't get a run home. That point of the game, Sevy was Jose Quintana was dealing. He had a good control on this game until the 4th inning. So you felt like, let's build him some confidence. Let's get him a run across the board. No, missed opportunity there in the second. And then in the 4th, they have nothing going. Meyer strikes out the side. But then we come back to the 5th inning. Starlin Marte leadoff double. Part of the lineup that's coming up. Luis Torrens, Harrison Bader, Luis Angel Acuna. Runner at second, nobody out. Opportunity to immediately get a run back and make it 2-1. Maybe put a little bit of pressure on this Brewers team. No. Runner at second, nobody out. They don't get a run across. That's it. That's where the Mets lost this game tonight. They lost it in the 2nd inning after Pete gets the second base off of the error and they don't capitalize. And in the 5th inning, when after giving up 2 runs in the bottom part, Starlin Marte hits a double, leadoff double, and the Mets are unable to get the run home. That's it. That's where the Mets lost this game tonight. They did not take advantage of the 2 opportunities they had in this game, because if you score both of those runs, we're talking about a 2-2 game, and it's managed differently from both sides. And I think the energy level is different from both sides if the game is 2-2. But the Mets missed on those opportunities. They got mowed down by this Brewers pitching staff tonight, who used an opener in this game and used their A relievers because they're not using their A relievers tomorrow. They're going to give them 2 days off ahead of their Tuesday wildcard matchup. So that's where the lineup construction from Carlos Mendoza, part of it out of his control, like Francisco Alvarez, part of it also out of his control with Lindor's back. He has to DH, so that means you can't really get JD Martinez in the lineup, although I don't know how much better JD would have been considering the struggles he's had as of late. But again, it limits what options Carlos Mendoza had at his disposal today. That's the lineup he has to put out there in a must-win scenario. And I hate to use must-win because the Mets were not eliminated with their loss tonight, but it just felt like they needed to get one. They have to get at least one, and now all of the pressure is placed onto tomorrow's game. This is the lineup they put out there, and the bottom part of the lineup that has its fair share of flaws was up in 2 key moments and 2 key spots in the 2nd and the 5th, and they failed. They were not able to get those runs across. That's where the game was lost. That's where the New York Mets were unable to break through, and it was over at that point. It was over. They were not going to get to this Brewers bullpen once they turned it over to Payampas, Ashby, Mears, Williams. Those guys came in. Not a single hit. You got the hits early. They turned it over to their A-plus relievers. You didn't get it done. And again, those are the 2 things that are going to keep the Mets up at night tonight. And also what's going to keep the Mets up tonight is a 2-out, full count, 2 RBI single in the 4th inning that made this game 2-0. They showed the graphic during the game because, of course, this happens to the Mets. The Brewers, the most 2-out RBIs in all of baseball, or the most 2-out runs in all of baseball. And with 2 outs and a full count, Quintana's got to get one over. He puts one over, and a little bloop hit into left center field, scores 2 runs, and it's 2-0. And the Mets were unable to recover from that point. They weren't even able to get anything close to a rally going. You can't even call what happened in the fifth with the leadoff double a rally because nothing came of it. It was a ground ball that moved Marte to third, and that was it. It was over there. They didn't threaten again. And so the New York Mets are going to really have to look themselves in the mirror tonight because they know, and they definitely do now, that the Braves won tonight. They don't know the result of the Diamondbacks game, but they know there was this nice little fantasy land we were all living in of, if the Mets win a certain number of games and then a certain number of results happen with the Royals and the Braves and the Padres and the Diamondbacks, maybe Monday won't matter and they won't have to play. Guess what? We're all going to be there watching our television screens on Monday when this team takes on the Braves for 2. But with an effort like tonight, an offensive effort like tonight, where there was not an adjustment, and I think that's the thing that bothers me the most about tonight's game, is that they clearly had a plan, and they had this plan all year. It's the way Eric Chavez has coached this team as the hitting coach, is they're patient. They take strikes. They got to have some urgency. They got to have some aggressiveness. They have to put together some level of adjustment in these games because the offense cannot go cold like this. They're too talented. And I know this has been a streaky offense this year, and they go from 3 straight games of 10-plus runs to whatever we've gotten over the last couple of days. But they have to find a way to get some consistency, and their big players, their star players, have to step up. We're going to talk about that lack of urgency and where maybe they can find a spark here with just a couple more games left in the season because the urgency was not there tonight. We'll get into that here on the other side. This episode of the Locked On Mets Postcast brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. With hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival's city during the postseason. Maybe it's time to taste test your baseball competition stadium cuisine. Luckily on Booking.com, you can find the stadium stay that's just right for you. With Booking.com's wide variety of choices across the U.S., you can go incognito to all your baseball rivals' cities. Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay for you. No matter what team you are rooting for this postseason, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts to cute bed and breakfast stays, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. PrizePicks. We've been talking about it a lot here on the show. America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks, the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineup stays in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks, your picks are still live. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. Urgency. It is what the New York Mets lacked. And I talked about it with the 0 for 15 from Lindor, Vientos, Nimmo, and Alonso. If I asked you, if I told you, you did not know that the Brewers had clinched a playoff spot, and you didn't know that the New York Mets were still fighting for their playoff lives, which team played with the urgency, pitching-wise, hitting-wise, on the base paths, defense? Which team played with the urgency like their season was on the line? And which team played like a team that has everything wrapped up and is getting ready to set up their team correctly for the postseason? You would say that it was reversed. You would say that it was the Brewers, the team that is playing for everything right now, and that the Mets already have everything locked up. That's the biggest takeaway from tonight's game. The stars of this team not hitting, and the fact that they look like the team that already had everything locked up. They looked like the team that was trying to set themselves up for the postseason. And the Brewers looked like the team that needed every single run they could get across the plate, and every single at-bat was the last at-bat of the season because they needed every single one of those at-bats to go their way. They get on the base path, they just steal bases. The Mets just are unable to defend the stolen base once again. Brewers have just torched them this year on the base paths. You have to go all the way back to the beginning of the season, when these two teams opened the year against each other, same thing was going on. One of the reasons that all of a sudden Omar Narvaez wasn't on this team anymore. The New York Mets have lacked urgency this week, but tonight in particular, they lacked urgency. There lacked adjustment. There was a lack of just energy for a team that needs these results to go their way. They need to find victories. They need to put themselves in a position where Monday means something. They're not going to lock it up this weekend. I don't think it would have even mattered if they won the game, but the win would have helped them make sure that it was not do or die. They have to win both games on Monday. And they just didn't play like that team. And I'm sure Ryan on the Locked On Mets podcast, which is, if you're listening to this in the podcast feed, Ryan will have definitely more thoughts on this. And there's a lot of big picture takeaways for this team over the next couple of days. But here in the moment, I just can't help but feel disappointed. I was sitting. Remember, we've talked about this. I talk about the chair that I sit in when I watch these games. I sat in this chair tonight. And I didn't move a whole lot. There wasn't a lot to get excited about for this team offensively. And I felt like my energy level sitting in this chair matched the energy level this team was putting out in front of me. And that is sad to say for a team that for so long this season, for so many games, for such a long stretch of time in the second half, has been the complete opposite of that. Yet this week, and tonight in particular, just lacked the energy and the urgency that this moment required. And I don't want to go all they need to call a team meeting, but somebody's got to say something. And I hope somebody did say something tonight in that room. What the bleep are we doing? Are we acting like a team that wants to play in the postseason? And I just hope somebody takes on that leadership role and says what needs to be said tonight. Because this team is going to be under a microscope for the next 48 hours. There's a lot of pressure on this team. If there was all, and I listen, I live on Mets Twitter with everybody else. I've seen everybody start to compare this to 2022 and compare it to 2007 and 2008 and 2021 and all these other meltdowns that Mets teams have had in the past. I can hear the noise. And there have always been, well, this isn't those teams. This is a different team. This is a different group. Yes. But guess what? For all of us who have lived through a lot of those and have been in the weeds on all of those, this feels like the same ending. Just a couple line changes in the script, but it feels like the same ending. And guess what? This team in 2024 has 48 hours to rewrite the script. The script is not complete. We've got an opportunity to do a table read here with a new script. And it's going to be up to this team. And so hopefully Francisco Lindor can step up. Hopefully Mark Vientos, Brendan Nimmo, and Pete Alonso can step up. Another 0 for 15. And I think we're having a totally different conversation. And these postcasts will end after Monday. And I don't want that to be the case. I want you all to still be here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel, hanging out with me during a postseason run where we get to do this every single night, talking about the Mets being in the playoffs. And guess what? A week and a half ago, I was clearing my schedule, maneuvering things around, making sure I had myself the time to watch and be a part of a playoff run, but also be able to present these postcasts. And now it feels like in just a couple days, everything has been upended. And it was a lack of urgency tonight. I think I've had more urgency in this postcast than the team had tonight on the field. And they are going to have to find it in a hurry. But that is going to do it for us here on the Locked On Mets postcast. Make sure you are subscribed to us here on the YouTube side of things. We got you covered after every New York team plays. Myself and Jay Berman have you covered. I've got you covered, obviously, on the Mets and the Jets side of things. We got a big one tomorrow against the Broncos. He's got you covered on the Giants side of things. And the Knicks starting up here pretty soon. A big trade getting Karl Anthony Towns. So I'm sure those Knicks postcasts will be fun when Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges make their debut for the New York Knicks here. So that'll be fun as well. So we will be back tomorrow for a postcast for not only the New York Jets, but for the New York Mets in what is the conclusion of this series against the Milwaukee Brewers. And hopefully they can find that urgency and find a victory to change what Monday might look like for this team. But again, subscribe to us here on the YouTube side of things. Also, make sure if you're listening to us in the podcast feed after the fact, you join us on the YouTube side of things for these postcasts. But that's going to do it for us tonight, everybody. A disappointing one as the New York Mets offense continues to be missing, and they are going to have to find it in a hurry or else they will not be participating in the 2024 playoffs. But the good news for them is there is still time left for them to find it, and hopefully they can do so tomorrow. But that's going to do it for us here, everybody. See you.